Well, I studied the prayer of thanksgiving, and I was surprised how often the Bible mentions it. Of the 12 prayer types, the prayer of thanksgiving was probably written about the most. For example, it appears in the book of Leviticus, the third book of the Bible. It's also mentioned in Nehemiah, Ezra, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos, and Jonah. King David gave prayers of thanks. So did Jesus. Paul began many of his letters with thanksgiving prayers. And it appears in the book of Revelation. Clearly, the Bible is full of thanks. But as I began to research, I tried to find other sources about Thanksgiving prayer. I couldn't find any. Curiously, Christian literature was silent on the matter. I wondered why, but still, I needed some guidance on how to give thanks. There are two types of people in the world. The first type drives the other crazy, causes them to drink, overeat, go bald. He's the perpetually happy person. Maybe you know someone like this. He wakes up with a smile on his face and wholesome goodness in his heart. He springs out of bed and cheers, "Yay, another day!" and gets ready for the day. He skips out of his door, greeting everyone with double-wide dimples. Yes, trials come, but he meets them with cheery spunk and sunny sparkles. Then he invites them over for a barbecue. "Get 'em while the grill is hot," he says. Thanksgiving comes very easy for him, but not for his wife. You see, she's the other type. Let's call her Betsy Heverly. Betsy loves her husband, but she doesn't always like him. He's so chippy, so cheery, so sunny. He's so fancifully deluded about real life. He needs to get his head out of the clouds, she thinks, and stop playing make-believe. He insists she's a pessimist, but no, she just thinks she's a realist. So Betsy wakes up with a scowl on her face and cranky gloom in her heart, because morning has come so soon. "Another day already," she mutters as she thinks about her day. She lumbers out of bed and rolls her eyes as she sizes up her hips. "Oh, look what he's done to me," she says about her husband. Then Betsy gets ready with no amusements, no chuckles, not even a grin, and she goes through her day the same dreary way. When trials come, she meets them with a gray, knowing glance and shoos them away with sarcastic snips. Thanksgiving doesn't come easy for Betsy, but that doesn't excuse her from it. The prayer of thanksgiving is not the mode of a cheerful mood. If that were the case, she'd sooner catch clouds in her purse than beam with sunshine. No, the prayer of thanksgiving is a much higher calling. One of the forms of Jewish sacrifice in the Old Testament was the thank offering. Now, the Jews were a people set apart for God. They lived among various ethnic groups who worshipped other gods, but despite that, the Jews committed to serve the God they called Yahweh. As part of their worship, the Jews sacrificed their valuables to God. Had they sacrificed items that didn't mean much to them, well, their offerings wouldn't have meant as much to God. But instead, they offered costly sacrifices. For example, farmers offered portions of their harvests, and families offered firstborns of their livestock. Their offerings were their very livelihood. These were farmers, remember. And the people felt their absence from the fold. Within this spirit of costly sacrifice, individuals offered thank offerings to God. For instance, the book of Psalms says, "I am under vows to you, O God. I will present my thank offerings to you." Let them sacrifice thank offerings and tell of his works with songs of joy. I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call on the name of the Lord. To the Jews, the thank offering was a viable means of sacrifice. Thanksgiving was also an important and intentional part of certain events. When David prepared the temple to be built, he set aside the Levites as priests. Now, one of the duties of the Levites was to thank God every morning and every evening. David believed a vital component in the house of God was deliberate gratitude. So the priests gave thanks twice a day. When Hezekiah cleansed and restored the temple, he ordered people to bring sacrifices and thank offerings. Now that the temple was in order, Hezekiah reinstated the practice that David had previously instituted, which was thanksgiving. He actually ordered the assembly to give thanks. So the people sacrificed thank offerings to God. When the wall of Jerusalem was repaired, a man named Nehemiah assigned 2 choirs to give thanks. He placed one group of singers toward the dung gate. If you can give thanks at the dung gate, you can probably give thanks anywhere. And he positioned the other choir toward the gate of the guard. Then the choirs did their thing. They offered thanks to God. Thus, thanksgiving was instituted and assigned at certain events. But today, we don't think of Thanksgiving the same way, do we? No, we have to feel thankful before we'll offer thanks. Thanksgiving has become a feeling. Our feeling of gratitude originates inside, and somehow, sometime after the right circumstances have been met, it grows until we feel adequately thankful. Then, once we feel adequately thankful, we finally give thanks, but not before that. Let's not be hasty. We only give thanks until we actually feel it. We also have to see the particular benefit before we'll give the gratitude. Isn't this true? When a trial or testing comes, we reserve our thanksgiving for after it passes. We want to learn the lesson first before we thank God for the experience that provided the lesson. We wouldn't dare give thanks until we see the good we receive. After all, why offer goodness when we're not sure we'll get goodness in return? It's all supposed to even out, we figure. A gift for exchange of gratitude, a toy in exchange for thanksgiving. All sides are equal. And who would think of assigning thanksgiving? It's supposed to be voluntary, right? One of our key suppositions about worship is that worship should be voluntary. A heart that is confined is not a worshipful heart, we think. What's worse than a heart that doesn't worship? A heart that is insincere and unauthentic. So we root and we rattle and get ready for God. We wait and waffle to make our hearts right. But all along, we've left God at the altar. But this isn't how God thinks about Thanksgiving. Oh God, forgive us. Thanksgiving is not the mode of a cheerful mood, not beyond the realm of the realist. It's not a feeling that fluctuates with the activity of the day. Thanksgiving is not a system of give and take or the balance of barters, nor is it an imposition on an otherwise free heart. No, Thanksgiving is much more than this. Thanksgiving is an act of the will, a deliberate intention. It's a sacrifice to God, a costly offering. Thanksgiving is an action we take, not a feeling we muster. It's a grace we walk in, not one we step in and out of. Thanksgiving is a type of prayer, not a function of a personality. And according to the New Testament, Thanksgiving is not just for the old.